I'm gonna have to let him
Like
know
my
that
friend.
he's got
You like my
joy.
friend here? Did you like my friend here? My pal. He's looking after me. You know, like my wee buddy here. He comes everywhere with me. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
is it?
Well, this is very very fortunate for me to have both Mr. Keller and Mr. Rosie on a chat with me. I am
Hey,
very very.
hey, can I give you a bit of advice?
Yeah.
If you want people to continue coming onto your channel and talk, you should probably get their name right.
Yeah, that might.
Okay,
might be
let's start again. I have on with me today. I have Mr. Keller and his dudeness.
All right, I'll accept that.
Now, seriously, I want to first of all just briefly explain why the video is called Live Chat with Lord Voldemort. I am not suggesting one moment that you, dude, are Lord Voldemort. But when it comes to Chad, well, Chad, you take it away. First of all, I'd like you to quickly explain for those of us that have never ever been wrongfully convicted, what the hell must have happened to you when you got wrongfully convicted. Hello?
Did we lose Chad?
Oh, Chad's there. Is he there? He must have dropped out.
He might have. Sometimes Hangouts does that. You know, your phone drops out of it, or his phone might have died. He might have had a low battery and didn't plug it in time. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I know. Well, okay. Let's just quick cut to the chase then. I presume everybody knows Chad Keller, and if you don't, then it's about time you did, because basically for me, dude, Chad represents alternative thinking, but often with alternative thinking, it's not that way off the mark at times, you know.
Oh, hello,
I think you would agree with that. Hello, Ann.
Hello.
Hello. We seem to have dropped Chad, but nice to have you on board. Yeah. He
should be piping back in here soon.
I'm sure he will be. I'm sure he will. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Chad's talking to me on another line. Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, okay. There you
go. Chad, hang up the call that we're on. Rejoin the other one. There you are. All right, let me hang up this one.
There we go. Yes.
All right.
You there, Mr. Keller?
Chad, I realise that we've not got Eric Cozy for long. You need to crack on as well. I need to crack on. I know that you particularly wanted to talk about Tom Fallon. Hello, Chad.
Well, Tom Fallon is a good subject.
Well, it says Chad's
you know,
on. But I only see his picture. I don't see his.
I see his picture, but I don't hear him.
Yeah. Well, he's not coming through at the moment. Oh, there we go. I see a bit of video.
Oh, I saw a picture. Saw a video.
Yeah.
But you're and my friend Mark, Paul. He really, the one thing he takes umbrage with Fallon is at Brendan's trial during closing arguments, when Fallon tells the jury that innocent people don't confess.
Yeah.
Which is an absolutely false statement. According to the statistics coming out and the data coming out in terms of wrongful convictions. So I know that's one thing about Fallon that really gets Mark's goat, as it were.
Well, everybody's goat. I mean, sorry, present company accepted, obviously, but he's a sheep, so he's okay, But I mean, look, this Tom Fallon, he's really the he was. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but he was basically, or is, second in command to the Attorney General. So whether it's Peg likes a lager, or Brad Schimmel. Doesn't matter who they are. It's basically this keeping Stephen Avery where he is and not allowing the chaos to be unleashed. That would be the release again from prison. This Tom Fallon. This is his task. This is what he's been assigned to do. Am I right about that? I don't know.
I actually like the way.
Sorry?
I actually like the way Chad talks about it. Like when Fallon came into office or whatever, that even though he was the assistant district attorney, he had the big desk, and Schimmel had the little desk next to him or something. I like it. I think it's funny when he talks about it like that. So, anyways.
Well,
all right, guys, can y'all hear me now?
Oh,
yes, we can hear you, buddy.
Nice of you to join us.
Yeah, it's like I was there, but I wasn't there, you know. So yeah,
like parallel universe.
The little desk and the big desk. We're gonna talk about that little guy sitting at that little desk who's oh.
It's all yours, buddy. You crack on. Tell us what I know you want to tell us about Tom Fallon. So please just crack on. It's all yours.
Yeah, Fallon. Okay, so it's kind of funny because 3 years ago, okay, when Trisha Bushnell, when she was working Stephen Avery's case before she withdrew from the case, I would talk to her about like Ryan Hillegas. I talked to her about Bobby and Scott, and you know that was irrelevant back 3 years ago. Okay, so then Trisha told me that Zellner had told her that Tom Fallon is ethical and he doesn't need to be investigated. Okay, now 3 years later, what's she saying in this motion now? You know that she writes clearly Mr. Fallon has been misrepresenting, you know, parts of this case. And misrepresentation, that's a term for rule violation, you know. I mean, that's actually a rule violation term for. So, you know, like Juan and I, we've been on radio shows, we've been on podcasts. I mentioned the Bones and Tom Fallon in my book. I've been trying to unearth this guy for 3 years, you know, and like everybody's like, oh, he's not important. He's not important. He's a nobody. No, Tom Fallon is the third in command in the state of Wisconsin, you know. So,
well, technically second if you're talking about specifically the judicial branch. Well, not as in the courts, but the Attorney General, because he was the Assistant Attorney General for the state of Wisconsin, which is an appointed position, not an elected position. So that's actually leads into why he would have the bigger desk, because now we have Josh Call. Well, that's an elected position. So Tom Fallon, oh, look at that. He's still there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting you. Yeah. I mean,
right.
So keep going, Chad. Keep.
Man, I might say a couple of cuss words if I keep going right now.
That's all right.
And that would be totally out of character, wouldn't it, Chad?
Right, that would be totally out of character for me to say a cuss word. You know, we cannot cuss.
Paul allows that stuff on his channel.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Paul, you allow cussing on your channel?
Listen, dude. I am. Yeah, okay. I have to be careful because there could be, you know, someone tuning in. But as long as they realise that, you know, this isn't a music discussion, then I think we're going to be okay. I think
exactly. Yeah, let's talk about rape and murder, but you can't swear. Yeah.
Well, but no.
Hey, you know.
Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Okay, yeah.
So talk about everything being political, everything being beyond every road. How people think that Kratz was the one that, and it's not Kratz, it's Fallon.
Yeah, you know what? That's what you're trying to explain the little desk, big desk, how it was put earlier. Okay, so the thing I find interesting about this case, Tom Fallon came on in early March of 2006. Okay, and the reason he had to wait to get onto the case is because he was also deposed in Stephen Avery's civil suit. So Stephen Avery settled out February, just like days before he comes on. He would not have ever been able to come onto the case until that settlement was made. So, I mean, it's almost right in line with, hey, we got to get Stephen Avery to settle out so I can join the case, you know. And Ken Kratz, you know, everybody's like, Ken Kratz is the main villain and everything, the super villain. But why hasn't anybody like Jerry Buden or Dean Strang ever told Zellner to look up at Tom Fallon before? Okay, I mean, and this is important to distinguish because, you know, like Kratz got thrown under the bus for a sexting scandal that didn't even happen during this case. It happened, you know, 2.5, 3 years later after the trial. But Fallon has
just
been
as
a
he was
menace
getting
in
ready
this
to make a
case.
bid for Congress, by the way.
Exactly, and lo and behold, when Kratz does get his sexting scandal and Government Doyle calls him out and has him researched, who does Ken Kratz call to protect him? He emails Tom Fallon. It's right there in the pretrial transcripts. Y'all can read it for yourself. Kratz sends an email to Tom Fallon, and that's who he talks to, and that's who he reaches out to for protection is Tom Fallon.
Just like your book. Tell them about that.
Yeah, the book, the exact motion that Zellner filed on the bones and everything here recently. You know, I mentioned Article 648, which brings right into the code provision that she talked about. I discussed it in my book. I discussed the pelvic bone in my book. There's so much stuff that, like, it's like everybody's so far behind, and everybody attacks me and says, like, oh, you know, Fallon is this nobody. Fallon doesn't matter. It's like everybody thinks that this is a county level incident. No, it goes higher than that. I mean, it honestly goes higher than the county level.
The proof of that is DOJ agents pushing and pressuring Josh Redan. DOJ agents, not Calumet or Manitowoc, but DOJ agents pushing, you know, Redan to change his account of the fire he saw, and prodding him to adjust that. I mean, those are agents of the DOJ itself doing that. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, the DCI, Division of Criminal Investigation, that's basically your Attorney General's state brass. They're investigators for the Attorney General. Okay, and then you have the DCI going into Stephen Avery's garage at like 2 a.m. in the morning, right after they coerced Brendan Dassey, and it's Fassbender who's right there with the bullet when it's found off camera, the bullet fragment, okay? And another desk position, little desk, big desk, we're talking directly across the hallway. You walk out of Lautenschlager's office, and across the hallway was Tom Fassbender's office, okay? And, I mean, this is important because he was one of Lautenschlager's main, like, henchmen, I guess you could say, and him and Fallon... Yeah, they all show up in a small little county 142 miles away. This doesn't happen on a daily basis, okay? Like, you don't have the Attorney General going and their crew going out to little counties on a daily basis. And Juan can confirm that. I mean, he can you know, you had
it's not like when you watch like CSI, or I remember years ago watching, it was something with James Caan. You know, and he's like some CSI guy or whatever, and he's like busting down into the room first, you know, with his gun drawn. It's like, no. The CSI people don't do that. That's what they do on TV. That's left to local authorities. Why the hell are these state authorities doing that? Aside from the fact that when that phone call comes in from Ramaker, all right, he calls the DCI, what was it, on the 3rd? But the thing I mentioned, I don't know if you understood what I was saying, Chad, but when your book came out, All right, and Ken Kratz threatened you. Who did he go crawling to? Who did he say? I'm gonna tell. Who? Tell him.
Yeah. So, somebody just take a wild guess. Someone just take a wild guess who Ken Kratz alerted about my book. None other than Thomas Fallon. And when you're going straight to the assistant attorney general of the state, I mean, that's saying something. Ken Kratz gets murder threats on a daily basis, called all these horrific names. But then when I talk about him in my book and talk about him in my book before it comes out, he's like, oh, I'm going to alert Mr. Fallon of everything you're saying. Now, why would you do that if you have nothing to hide? If I'm a conspiracy theorist, you just write me off and don't say nothing else about it. But when you go and freaking notify Tom Fallon that my book is going to expose something,
Well, I always use if nothing unimportant has ever walked the plank of censorship. All right. If I said Bigfoot killed Teresa Halbach, most people would just roll their eyes and say, yeah, whatever, you conspiracy theorist, goofball, blah, blah, blah. You don't even give people like that the time of day, right? Well, Ken Kratz, he's an attorney. He can't file a lawsuit. He can't file a civil suit. Instead, he goes to the second highest in command and says, I'm going to sick him on you. Now, that right there should tell people that something is up. And hopefully, Zellner is catching on to it, because we've been screaming this for past 2.5 years. And finally,
3
people are
years.
starting
3
to listen.
years. I mean,
yeah.
I'm old. Time just is irrelevant to me. My old ass.
All right. There's a post that I wrote November 19th. Okay, just because Zellner, just because she brought Fallon up, on November 19th of 2017, I wrote this post. Okay, if y'all click in on the video, like my video, y'all can read it right now. It says Zellner doesn't understand Fallon's power. Do you? I'll say it here, so in the future, when you all look back, don't say I didn't warn anyone again. I said Assistant Attorney General Thomas J. Fallon is on political rug sweeping duty to hide the corruption in the Stephen Avery case. I've been saying it. I've been saying it for 3 damn years, and no one is listening,
Chad,
hopefully
Chad,
they are now.
can I just ask a question there, though, Chad?
Yeah, go ahead.
But from the point of view of somebody looking across the Atlantic, I understand what you're saying, but from Zellner's point of view, does she have to approach the state of Wisconsin and their legal system as if it's fair to begin with? And now she's finding out how unfair it is. But to begin with, I think we have to give her a bit of slack. It's all in good well being warned about, how bad Wisconsin is, but she has to begin with to approach it from that point of view.
I would say it might be a situation of anybody can throw spaghetti at the wall, but she wants it to stick, so she has to wait for the proof of that to really continue to emerge, so that she can make a case for it.
She's gonna have to go federal if she does anything with Fallon, because of Fallon's position. You got the Assistant Attorney General's office. They're supposed to basically govern the way the Department of Justice works. But when your top cops and their lieutenants are basically committing crime, it's in the federal realm. So I mean Zellner has said that if she, after Wisconsin Supreme Court, if she has to go federal, she's going to go federal, and I believe that none of this will get resolved until it's federal, until it's dropped into federal level.
Well, and since we're on this track, I can completely understand, because if you've ever heard of Occam's razor is basically similar to the doctor who says, if you hear hoof prints, think horses, not zebras. If you have another suspect, something simple, something that it could be Bobby, and you're going to chase that till it runs out. That makes perfect sense, especially for what she does and having the evidence and basically legally having something to go off of, because, going at the aspect of, well, it also could be the cops, it also could be the higher ups, etc. But to at least not leave that open, because my whole thing with this, and why I truly believe that this is a top-down scenario, and this basically is now showing that that's closer to the case, is the motive. Okay, why not kill him? Why not put him away, for something else? Why do this? Why would they go through all this trouble? And the only explanation I've come up with is that it's going to hide what they've been doing for years and years and years, going all the way back, in my opinion, to the 80s and the 70s. Versus, okay, Bobby got horny and psycho and just decided to kill her. So that is the simpler answer. Plus, when it comes to the evidence, that's the easier ball to chase. But when I don't know if she does Reddit or listens to you guys or us or whatnot, but with all the stuff that Chad's found with the book, he sent it to her. Like, nobody bothered to look into this. Nobody bothered to make the connection with Toohig and the Green Bay Packers and the Manitowoc County executive, all these little political tie-ins. I get where she's coming from, try the simple stuff first, but when there's such a big glaring opening, to me at least, why not chase that? So I don't necessarily blame her for going this route. But again, to me anyway, enough has been out there to when she says, Thomas Fallon's ethical, and maybe she knows him, but with so many options to the contrary, why not at least try that, earlier than this? So I get what you're saying. As in, looking why would she look at this? But realistically, when you're trying to keep all options open and you're noticing how corrupt the state can be, try different angles sooner. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Sorry, the other thing that I find interesting is the fact that it's a little bit like, you're playing a game of, as you Americans would call it, soccer. Okay, so I go to the playground and I bring the ball along. And if I'm not happy with the way the game's going, I can just take my ball with me and just say, "Oh, sod you." And it seems to me like the state of Wisconsin are controlling how the judges are, and it's like, it doesn't matter what Zellner does. She can play the greatest game of football that she likes, but every now and then the state will just pick up the ball and say, "Oh no, you're playing with it."
Correct. And that's another thing. All right, now in America here, in the last few years, and I've talked to friends of mine who are attorneys, and apparently judges do not like to write their own case law, which is why you always have to cite other laws and scenarios, right. And my thought on that is like, well, case law becomes case law because somebody comes up with this scenario first, and that judge has to rule on it anyway. Why would they not just do what was right? But apparently, I don't know if it's something they're taught, if it's something that's, within a lot of statutes, etc. But yeah, when it comes to, how the judges decide, anybody should be able to look at this. What Judge Angie has written and said, oh my God, that's like a parent who doesn't want their kid to go out with a group of friends and set it in it, but they don't actually have a good reason for it. So they're just going to say, well, it's because I said so. So how do you get past that? But then again, it goes to motive. Why would you as a judge do that? You're obviously educated. You're obviously smart. You're obviously in a position of power. The only scenario you do that is you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You lazily go through it, or you're on the take, which leads to motive as why would that decision be made? And it goes back to they're trying to cover something up. They're all in this together. They all talk to each other because it's just like you and your buddies that you go bowling with or whatever. In Madison, it's basically a clique. And matter of fact, that's if you go into Republican circles, Republicans are always complaining about their representative because all of a sudden they get what called Dane fever, which is basically they all of a sudden go, well, I kind of want to be liked by this group and this person and this organization. Yeah. So I'll vote for what I would normally vote against just to be kind of within the in crowd. So, that happens a lot more than people think. Well, now if you're actually covering something up, well, now you've got a lot of motive, because if your name is in that little black book, the Heidi Fleiss, for example, if your name's in there, well, you're going to do everything you can to cover that up too. So once again, leading back to, the theory that, more than likely this is way, way, way from up top, and it's not something simple from local law enforcement.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's.
Well, I wanted to talk about motive.
Sorry.
Actually,
Yeah.
Juan brought up motive there a little bit back. In terms of the state's motive, I think Chad really the best motive for the state, and it goes beyond just the lawsuit of Stephen Avery, and this is the part I find most interesting.
He's breaking up. Can you hear him?
I can't hear him. Hey, Mr. Rosie, the dude, you're breaking up.
I'm breaking up. Hold on.
Yeah.
Try again. You're better now.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, better.
Okay.
Better.
Okay, so Chad has the best, illustrated for me the best the motive that the state has, and that is, at the time there were a little over 900 prisoners in Wisconsin petitioning the Wisconsin Innocence Project, looking to get their evidence tested, whatever they could do to try to, right their wrongful convictions. Now, to start, were all 900 of those men going to be successful? Absolutely not. Not even. Okay. But with what was going on with Stephen Avery, the DOJ was probably seeing some writing on the wall with that. Mm-hmm. And then they look over and see 900 people petitioning the Innocence Project. And let's just go really conservative on it. And let's say out of 900, let's say 20 of those guys prove their innocence and squirt out. And you got 20 people, you got suddenly 20 Stephen Averys all over the state of Wisconsin, bankrupting a lot of coffers. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that that to me would have been a huge motive for the state to be like, oh my God, we need to revilify this guy. We need to make this all go away, because this is going to become a huge mess.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I got a couple of counters to that, if you don't mind, Chad.
Yeah.
First, couple things. One, even if Stephen Avery didn't, that doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to be successful, which means they'd have to do that to him too. Okay, so for all the 900 prisoners, there might be 1, 2, 10 that actually successfully are like Stephen Avery and actually get that lawsuit to go through. So that kind of motive, looking beyond, they're not going to go through all this when somebody else can just do the same thing. Secondly, you can actually do laws in there. They just passed a law in Wisconsin about tort reform, even on a civil suit. Secondly, you don't have to, there's nothing that says that even if you get paid, you have to get paid in a lump sum. They could get paid that over years. And I'll give you the perfect example, the state of Illinois. The state of Wisconsin is one of the few states, teachers in Wisconsin get paid very, very well. They have a pension system that is off the charts, but it is also fully funded. You look at the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois is probably going to do, mark my words, I'll bet money on this. Mark my words. They'll, unless they do something, which I don't think they will, and even then, it's going to be something pretty drastic. That pension system for their employees are going to go bankrupt pretty soon. Okay, so the people in politics, what a lot of people miss is that when you're in politics, just like a CEO, you don't give a flying money shot, what is going to happen 10, 20, 30 years down the road. You're concerned about the next quarter. You're concerned about your next election. Let somebody else do it. Let somebody else worry. Because what's the problem with now in Illinois is that when they made these deals and these pension systems and everything, everybody was a baby boomers. Everybody was working. There was nobody actually taking money out of the system. Well, now the baby boomers are retiring. They're taking money out of the system. There's not the other people putting the money back in, and that's where they're getting. So when it comes to the lawsuits, the money and then the most important point of all, and I say when it comes to government money, is like getting kicked in the crotch. Well, why is it so funny when somebody gets kicked in the crotch? The answer's simple. It's not my crotch. When it's not your money, they don't give a flying money shot. Somebody else is going to pay those taxes. Tax the rich, tax gas, tax, ethanol, tax whatever, in order to make up for this. So the fact that they would actually go through and take the time to frame Stephen Avery, all right, for the county's money, for the state's money, anybody who's involved in politics would be like, dude, fuck that. I'm not going down for that. Let the state worry about that. So then the only motive left over is, well, what else could they be covering? And that is which I say, which there's lots of, and I wouldn't say proof, but there's lots of circumstantial evidence leading to what was happening is that these people, these higher ups, and I could tell you stories off camera of, drug trafficking, human trafficking. The cops are involved. Matter of fact, go look up Operation Shattered Shield in New Orleans, and the entire department got taken out. There's a Netflix video about the 77th or 75th precinct in New York City and Michael Dowd and how they were on the take, and he was basically running, protection for one of the biggest drug dealers in the east side of New York. This is not uncommon. Now, you take this over years and years and years. All these guys literally coming back from Vietnam. Look at the movie Lethal Weapon. Art mimics life, life mimics art. So that's why I say, that is more to me the motive, because if you get caught with that, you're going to jail, versus if the state has to pay money out, who cares? They're not going to get hit. And if so, Manitowoc County might have gotten hit, but you know what? The new guys coming in, they don't get as good of a pension. The old guys still get their pension. So what do they care? The new guys don't know anything because they're not going to know what the old guys got. So for me, anyway, when they say, the motive was to save the state money, politicians don't give a flying money shot about other people's money. So that's why I am stuck thinking that this is what they're really covering. And if you think about it, Peg Lautenschlager was appointed by who? Bill Clinton. And if you look at Bill Clinton and Mena, Arkansas, and Hillary, and Josh Call worked for Hillary's campaign, who's now, and he's also Peg Lautenschlager's son. I mean, this is just a reciprocating cycle. So and that's another thing. Josh Call's in there. I'll bet money on this too. Josh Call will not let Stephen Avery out unless Stephen Avery signs something to where it's a gag order to where he will never talk about this case, and he promises not to sue, and they'll give him a lump sum of money. And Zellner's job is just to get him out. She'll probably be like, yeah, well, do you want this, or do you want to, catch the bad guys? He's probably be like, dude, I'm like in my 50s. I just want the fuck out of prison, So that'd be the only way. I mean, there's a governor pardon too, but Evers, no, I don't think he'll do it either. And like I said, I'll lay money on that. But that when you talk about motive, that's why I firmly believe that it's not that they're worried about the state would have to pay out all that money. I firmly believe that they are hiding something very, very nefarious that they've been doing for decades.
I honestly believe they could be easily hiding stuff too. Absolutely.
You also got to think human trafficking and drug trafficking is still making politicians money somewhere, though. The officers, law enforcement's involved in all that stuff, Mm-hmm. So I mean, it still touches the realm of political, and that's like Article 648. It was discussing preserving biological matter and custodial interrogation, and these two very factors became the biggest part of Brendan Dassey and Stephen Avery's trial,
Yep.
And so it's still political, Yep. Either way you look at it, they were working on these exact factors prior to them getting sentenced in their trials, prior to the incident.
There is some sweet irony in the fact that Gahn wrote the statute that's now biting them in the ass, right?
Oh yeah. Well, what's the odds of Gahn and Buting sitting on the Avery Task Force for 2 years together, from December 23rd of 2003 all the way to July of 2005? Okay, nearly 2 years, and then they're working on biological matter. Buting's writing the custodial interrogations, and then they both come over to prosecute, and they come over to defend. Okay. Now that doesn't happen. They should have not been allowed to be on this case because they were working Stephen Avery's civil suit. Neither one of them should have been on this case. If you're doing something political for the state capital, I find a conflict of interest in it. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd that they were working so closely together, and then.
Oh yeah.
But I imagine it happens a lot.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't happen a lot. That's what people are. That's where they're so confused. People are like, "Oh, they're all friends." No, Madison is 142 miles. Madison's 142 miles.
The Seventh Circuit court judges, like the law clerks, were like all they all knew each other, and like Drizzen knew Rovner, and like I think he clerked for her back in the days, and like there's just like all this crossover. So I was just thinking there was more like that, but I'll sorry, let you continue, but that's kind of what I was thinking. So
yes, but this case, okay, so you don't have a lot of bipartisan groups going on, and the Avery Task Force became the Criminal Justice Study Commission. Peg single-handedly picked Buden to go up, higher, and basically Buden represented 1/4 of that faction, okay, when it became the Criminal Justice Study Commission. So, like for the bipartisan group to be working, what I find very interesting, in the Avery Task Force, you had 20 members to begin with, and they were judges, they were DCI agents, they were state crime lab personnel, they were sheriffs, they were senators, and Buden's the only one who believed that Stephen Avery was innocent, yet if you go back to the Super Lawyers magazine 2012, they did the Buden and Strang played good cop, bad cop with Stephen Avery, and Buden played the role of bad cop because he didn't believe in Avery at first. But now, since making a murder, Avery's innocent. But yet 2012, 3 years earlier, they had to play the good cop, bad cop role. There's a lot of stuff that, like with this bipartisan stuff, it doesn't happen every day. You shouldn't have that many people in the pool, coming over from the state capital level to Manitowoc County and Calumet to defend and prosecute. I mean, you had Dean Strang's office is 2 minutes from Tom Fallon on attorney legislators. You had Fassbender's office across the hallway. You have Buden and Gahn, who spent 2 years, together on the Avery Task Force. All these people come right out of Madison. That doesn't happen on a daily basis. Plus, Buden, he was very instrumental in the custodial interrogations, and these were things that Buden and Dean Strang allowed to be sealed in the pretrial, in the preliminaries. Now you had 9 sealed documents that regarded around Brendan Dassey's testimony and his confession and coercion that should have never been sealed.
And I guess to clarify, when we're talking about these, people all hang out together, etc., there is, what is it, 22,000, Chad, attorneys in the state of Wisconsin?
22,000, yeah. Well, that's judges, attorneys, and prosecutors basically combined, with your state bar licenses, 22,000.
Okay, so you got to think that a majority of those are probably in Milwaukee, number 1, Dane, Madison, number 2, Green Bay, 3, Eau Claire, 4, Superior, 5. So La Crosse, the bigger cities. Out of all those, I mean, you've got in Milwaukee alone, names Habish, Rotier, Warshawski, Eisenberg, Weigel, and Carlson, Daniel Conda's Law Office, David Gruber. These are just ones I'm rattling off the top of my head. Out of all those attorneys, Glenn decides to say, hey,
Jerry
Buden.
This
guy, Buden and Strang.
Right.
Now, granted, again, well, why is it Glenn? Glenn happens to be on this task force who's handling Avery's first appeal. All of them are in this circle. Like, there's not, if there was just one, Warshawski or Habish or Rotier or Gruber, to say, okay, well, he's going to be at least co-counsel, like Buden and Gruber. No, it's Buden and Strang. And Strang is of the law firm of Strang, Bradley, and Bradley. And the Bradleys are the son and the daughter of Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Ann Walsh Bradley.
And Walsh Bradley, right. And I put
so
that
it's like everything from Madison, but nothing from Milwaukee, the biggest city, nothing from Green Bay, even though that's close. That's closer. Brown County is what, like 40 minutes north. of Manitowoc. They couldn't use anybody from there. As a matter of fact, I do believe the district, one of the federal courts or district is in Green Bay. Why couldn't they use that? No, they go straight to this little inner circle that controls everything. So I hope that clarified.
Can I just ask, and I'm sure I know the answer to this, but what did Stephen Avery make of his defense team once he knew that there was these connections between certain people?
Can I say the derogatory terms that he used of beauty? I'm gonna spare them just once because it's the Paul Capaldi show. But
listen, I think this is.
Have you ever heard of Scotsman? Oh my Lord!
Oh man, we don't have enough beers in us yet. Okay, we'll
I'm working on it.
But yeah, it's to me the I mean you really gotta just draw a map from you got Fallon and Fassbender. Their offices are right across the hallway. Okay, then you had Strange's office 2 minutes away. It's like literally the next building over, but you gotta like go up the street to it. But it's a 2 minute walk. Then you have Gone and Buting, who are sitting on the Avery task force, and they all come over to prosecute and defend. It's like you're in a 3 minute walking radius, and all these people jump over, and like they're sitting on all these political things that were involved. Why the hell didn't Buting, why didn't Buting get Drizzen to be the expert witness for Brendan's confession? He hired a person, but when he's talking February 23rd, 2006, Buting, Drizzen gives him the exact thing that happens to Brendan Dassey. He hypothetically talks about the very exact incident that happens to Brendan Dassey. It comes 5 days later, and so Buting knew about Drizzen. Drizzen knew about Buting. Where the hell was Drizzen at on March 2nd? Whenever Ken Kratz doing this press conference. I mean, this is only like 7 days earlier that this is going on, and you invite the leading experts of the country to the Criminal Justice Study Commission. So if you knew that Drizzen was the leading expert in our fucking country at that time, excuse my F-bomb, you get the leading man, okay?
Well, here's an.
Can I just come in here just a moment? If for me, it's like, although all these people might know each other, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that they all agree. Could it be that there's a certain amount of complicity amongst all these people? If the ball's rolling that way, let's all go that way. If it's rolling that way, and could it be that since Making a Murderer came out, that some of the guys that as you pointed out, they've kind of realized we're going to have to change channel here. We're going to have to, realize what's going on. Could it be even that although they tolerate one another legally because they meet so much, that that Making a Murderer has given them the opportunity to say, you know what, you used to be my friend, but I can see how corrupt you are now.
Here's the thing on that,
Paul.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put a bit of positive spin on this because at the moment you're making me feel very sad about Wisconsin. I'll tell you that.
Okay, but
there's a lot to be said about.
Look, Paul. Paul. Let me explain. Let me try to give you a good answer.
Yeah.
Okay, and hopefully this will make some sense. Okay,
listen, you've always made sense.
Okay, so Jerry Buting, he was one of the lead authors on Custodial Interrogations, which is Juvenile Confessions. Okay, that was like his baby from December 23rd, 2003 forward. Okay, that was like his project, his main project. Okay, so 7 days before Ken Kratz makes his press conference, he's got the leading expert in our country at that time, Stephen Drizzen, because they brought the best of the best out to speak. Okay.
Yeah.
So
including the filmmakers.
Right. So 7 days later, when Ken Kratz is making this speech, why do you go and get a hold of someone else to handle this confession when you're Jerry Buden and Dean Strang, when you just met with the leading person in our country? And this isn't like 5 months later. It's not a year later. It's not 3 months. It's 7 days later. You had Drizzen's contact information. You say, look, man, I've been working and writing on this custodial interrogations for damn, at this point it's been 3 years. You want to get the best of the best, Why didn't he ever contact Drizzen again?
Well, here's another thing on that. I have a friend of a friend who went to one of these sit-down forum seminars with Strang, Drizzen, and Laura Nyrider. They said in that presentation that Drizzen was supposed to be, he's the foremost expert, right? But yet they got somebody else.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
They actually said they had somebody else, but they didn't use them. What the hell kind of defense attorney has an expert and doesn't use them?
Well, you know why they didn't use them? Because they sealed the 9 documents relating to Brendan Dassey's confession. And then they sat on it till December of 2006 before they said, oh, we're not even going to use Brendan Dassey as a co-defendant. We're going to separate him from the trial completely. They sealed the documents so Stephen Avery wouldn't have a defense. If you seal nine documents, there's something wrong there. You should have had Drizzen going over those 9 sealed documents. You should have had every damn expert in child custodial interrogations going over them documents.
And get this.
This was Jerry Buden's project. How do you fuck up and let the first kid in Wisconsin get railroaded?
Yeah, after something that you did, you designed, and you brought people in for. And here's the kicker. And I used the analogy during Prohibition in the 1920s. The grape farmers out in California were being hit really hard because of Prohibition because they couldn't make wine. So what they were doing was they were actually freeze drying or drying grape bricks.
I remember Chad talking about this. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, the grape bricks were for grape juice, so it'd be easy to transport. It doesn't spoil. So it actually said on the packaging, "Do not place this into a gallon of water and then place into a dark cabinet in a jug for 21 days because that would be wine and that would be illegal." Essentially, giving them the instructions to make the wine. Well, exactly what went on in this meeting on what not to do. It's like, don't,
they
interrogate them. Don't. Right. Yeah, they said exactly what they said. Don't do X, Y, Z, 1, 2, and 3. And then Fossbender and Dickface went in there and went X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. We've got a confession.
Can we use
you just asked?
I don't know, Peckerwood.
Hey,
Dickface,
seeing as I refer to Wiegert as Pinocchio in that picture where he's got his hands held apart on the stand.
Oh, yeah.
I have a meme I made where it says if I were Pinocchio, my nose would be this long right now. So yeah, he should be called that.
Yeah, if you type,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say and I'm perfectly willing to admit all this stuff might just be absolutely circumstantial. Bobby could have did it, else Stephen could have done it. But when you add up all these things, and I say in my videos early on, 1 is existence, 2 is coincidence, 3 is pattern. Yeah, this is not only 3 is pattern. This is 3 is pattern in everything. 3 is pattern with Strang, Bradley. 3 is pattern with Lautenschlager, Fallon being tied in with the Clintons. 3 is the bones, the blood, the sweat, DNA. Like every single thing has at least 3 things to where this is pattern and not coincidence or not merely an existence of fallacy that just popped up out of nowhere. When you can do that with every single segment of this case, with every single segment of the evidence, I'm sorry. To me, it only points to one logical conclusion. So, and again, it could be the greatest, coincidental, mind in the history of humankind. But, you know, like I think horses, not zebras. Well, in this case, it might be a herd of zebras simply because people are in a horse pasture and they're wearing horse blinders and they're getting ready to go horse riding, but zebras are stampeding them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
He's a really bad example off the cuff.
Yeah, well,
Right.
But we get it. Well, I got to duck out, guys.
I'm going to have to say cheerio as well. This has been absolutely fantastic. I've absolutely enjoyed listening to all of you guys. You have got so much knowledge on this case. I bow down to you. I am not worthy. I am not worthy. You're absolutely fantastic to listen to you guys chatting away. Could I please ask that we do this at some time in the future again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that would be absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. I was just going to say, guys, for anybody that's interested, Travis and I are going to be going live in a little bit. We're going to be talking about that Brady issue that you guys may have seen on Purple's channel getting touched on last night. Travis wants to go a bit deeper, so we're going to be going live to talk about that. So anybody that's interested,
excellent.
Tune in for that.
Chad, any more from you?
Nope. We'll just have to have another sit down one night, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to your video, Eric Jose.
Yeah.
We'll tune in.
Eric, Rosie
the dude.
Yeah, it's the dude. Yeah, let's just stick with the dude.
That'll work.
Good night, everybody. Thanks,
guys.
Thanks.
Cheers.